Hey guys, welcome to today's video. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about Minoxidil and different Minoxidil formulations and how understanding them can help you in your hair regrowing journey. I will also talk about my personal experience of applying Minoxidil for the last 10 years on my scalp, and about my results and how I have been able to keep it effective. And I also will talk about a couple of tips and suggestions that you can implement in your hair regrowth strategy as well. And for you guys who are new to this channel, remember to subscribe so you get notification about latest content that I upload. And if you're a new subscriber, welcome back. My name is Alex, and I'm previously hair loss sufferer who was able to regrow back my own hair. And I'm also a certified trichologist. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about Minoxidil in topical form, right? So if you want to know more about oral Minoxidil, I did make a video about it a couple of months ago where I talk about it and why I prefer topical Minoxidil. But this video will be about topical Minoxidil. And when it comes to Minoxidil, it is a medication, so there can be side effects that one needs to be aware of, and you can find the side effects behind the label of the product. So that's something that you definitely need to read. But for me, there has not been any side effects from Minoxidil application for the last 10 years. And it has been okay for me in terms of results and in terms of also safety profile of it. Minoxidil, like a mechanism action behind the Minoxidil is not quite well understood, but it is assumed, since it's a vasculator medication, it is something that increases oxygen flow and blood circulation around the follicles. It is something that keeps follicles longer in adhesion phase or growth phase. It is also something that helps to reactivate the follicles and make them thicker and darker. And there are a couple other things that happens when you apply Minoxidil. And when it comes to Minoxidil, we have a different categories of it. Like we have a basic category of Minoxidil, such as Rogaine, Kirkland, Regaine, Hims and Keeps. Those are basic Minoxidil formulations that usually contains 5% Minoxidil, and there is nothing else to it. Right, and then we have, for example, more advanced formulations such as Adhesion, such as Lipogaine, such as Formulation, for example, and of course Minoxidil Max. And difference between them is that they have additional elements. They may contain DHT blockers, either in form of salmeterol or finasteride. They may have a stronger Minoxidil, for example, in them. Content of Minoxidil could be, for example, at 6% strength, 10% strength, and even 15% strength in terms of Minoxidil Max. And there could also be additional ingredients in them, such as tretinoin, for example, that can help to reactivate the follicles, that can help to increase absorption of Minoxidil. And there can also be additional fatty acids, for example, such as an adhesion Minoxidil formulation that can help with DHT blocking, and so on. So basically, that's the kind of difference between them. And when it comes to my recovery and my results, I have used a basic formulation of Minoxidil, right? So basic formulation of Minoxidil at 5% strength, and I have been using Rogaine liquid and foam, right? So basically that's my approach that I have been doing, and it has been working very well. And the thing is that I do block DHT with finasteride, right? So basically I do take finasteride, and that basically doesn't require that I need to add additional DHT blocker, right? So for example, if someone is, for example, having a, let's say, high adhesion activity on the scalp, for example, and blocking DHT just by serum level may not be enough, then of course formulations that does contain DHT blockers could be an optional adjustment that one can make for the treatment. But for me, finasteride internally has been working well, and because of it, basic formulation has also been okay. And when it comes to basic formulation, so Minoxidil formulation in general, like if you want to keep it effective long term, you have to be sure the scalp is healthy and in balanced state, right? Because if there are any scalp issues, what will happen is that it will make Minoxidil less effective, and it will be much harder to see results from it. And you also need to be aware of that Minoxidil, like basically to produce here, like you need to be aware of that you do have a need for building blocks for it, right? You need to have protein in your diet, you need to have fatty acids, you need to have enough vitamins, minerals that are important for the hair, such as sulfur, such as silica, for example, and B vitamins, for example, B12, biotin, and so on, right? Those are important for the hair. And if you are lacking them, then it will be much harder for hair to grow, right? So make sure that you address that part as well. Don't just focus on formulations of Minoxidil, but actually focus on internal factors that are needed for follicles to be made. And when it comes to Minoxidil, it is a potent growth stimulant, and I want to show you a couple of results from, for example, these guys in my program who have been using Minoxidil and what kind of results they have been able to achieve after they had solved the underlying problems they were having. And here are a couple of results, and you can basically see, for example, in this guy case, he even had done a hair transplant in his early 20s, but it was not enough to stop his hair loss progression. And then basically we started to work together, we addressed his underlying problems he was having, and this is the results he was able to achieve. And here is other example of someone who had basically underlying problems and started to add minoxidil treatment, and those results basically he was able to achieve after doing it for 12 months. And here is other example, right? You can see basically how effective minoxidil can be if it's done correctly in the correct context of addressing the underlying problems, of fixing up diet, for example, fixing up micronutrients, and making sure that there is nothing else that could cause that minoxidil is not effective in terms of, for example, not blocking DHT, right? But because if you are having some kind of weak spots, then, for example, more advanced formulation can be in a way more effective, right? For example, formulations such as Rogaine, for example, it has fatty acids in it, and same with other gen as well, like fatty acids in it that can also help to moisturize your scalp. So, for example, the scalp is out of balance, then having a moisturizer in minoxidil formulation can be beneficial in those kind of scenarios. And same, for example, if you're not blocking DHT, as I said earlier in the video, then applying formulations that does block or contains DHT blockers, either in terms of natural DHT blockers or medications such as finasteride, dutasteride, can also be beneficial, right? So you have to kind of look at your current situation, at what you actually are doing in terms of treatment, and select the correct formulation for it. And for me, like I said, the basic formulation has worked just fine, right? So it was basically something that has been effective for me. And as I have spoken about in previous videos, each time it kind of stops of being effective, or I have, for example, a shed, it's not because of minoxidil, but it's usually because of other factors that I do a mistake, for example, my treatment or my approach, and then I have a shed because of it, and then I basically continue with minoxidil, and I'm able to recover from that mistake afterwards. And there is plenty of videos on my channel where I talk about those issues, and I talk about my setbacks, because setbacks is a natural part of this process, right? Setbacks can happen. We just need to basically address them and know what is causing those setbacks, so we can overcome them and continue with the treatment and recover from those setbacks. So those are a couple of things I wanted to share with you guys. And also I'm getting a lot of questions about rosemary oil and how to use it. And one suggestion that you can try is basically adding a rosemary oil, for example, not adding rosemary oil to the minoxidil itself, but you want to add it, for example, to the topical that you make yourself, or add it to, for example, shampoo, right? So that could be an option, one can use it. And remember that if you want to have effect from essential oils such as rosemary oil, so it has to stay on the scalp at least for 5 minutes, right? Ideally around 5 to 15 minute range, right? So in that case, for example, you can add it, for example, to a shampoo that is mild for the skin. That can be an option, and that can be sufficient to, for example, address getting additional growth factors, for example, in rosemary oil. And also remember that rosemary oil is essential oil, so you don't want to apply it directly on the skin because it can cause issues. So you have to use some kind of carrier, either in day carrier or the day products that you make yourself, for example, with essential oil and carrier oil, or, for example, adding to the shampoo. Practical questions about minoxidil application. Like I often get, how often do I apply minoxidil in my scalp? And I always have been applying minoxidil once a day. But as you know from previous videos, is that I do microneedling as well, right? So I do microneedling sessions before minoxidil application. Another thing is that minoxidil, like if you are doing it with microneedling, then it will become much more effective. At least from my experience, it has been very effective for me when I started to do it in combination with microneedling, and that's basically reduces need to twice a day application of minoxidil. Another thing is that when you apply minoxidil, like for example, if you don't have issues all over the scalp, like I had diffuse thinning on my scalp, so I had to apply it all over the scalp. But if you have just specific spots, specific areas that you need to fill in, for example, it could be temples, for example, or some gaps in the hairline or thinning crown area, then you can just focus on that area without applying all over the scalp. It's not needed to over apply it. If you are, for example, addressing the underlying problems while you're losing hair, then you don't need to apply minoxidil, for example, in areas where you actually are having hair, right? And another question that I often get is about, if one stops with minoxidil for a week, will it cause a shedding? And answer to it is no. Like you can stop with minoxidil for a week or even 2 weeks, it will still be okay, But if you, for example, stop with minoxidil suddenly for more than, let's say, 20 days, then yes, shedding will likely happen. But short-term stop, short-term break, for example, if you run out of minoxidil and you're not able to get it right away, if you have short-term breaks, then it's not going to cause a problem, right? Because if you want to stop with minoxidil, then you have to plan it out and you have to basically structure it in the way that you reduce frequency application and amount of application over time. And then it's okay to stop with it, but you have to plan it out soon. So those are things I wanted to share with you guys in today's video. And for you guys who struggle with your hair loss, who need help and guidance with this problem, you can schedule a call below the studio. There's a link for it. Let's talk and see what you can do right now to solve your hair loss once and for all. Thanks for watching. See you guys and see you next time. Cheers.